Recently, I decided to change my Lego beach, so today we're going to continue working on that. Now the water is going to be new and improved. Now it's going to have underlying plate. I found all these medium azure 2x4 plates on the pad wall the other day, and that's what I'm going to use as my underlying plate. Now I wanted to have the deeper portions of the ocean in that regular blue color, so I'm actually laying some of those as well. And you'll see that I'm actually leaving a spot open for the sailboat because I want the sailboat to be submerged within the water. Now in regards to the depth, it would be better if I had more of the smaller plates in azure, the 1x1s, the 1x2s, the 1x3s, all of the different smaller plates, so I could better blend it in between the two different depths in the blue and the azure. But you know what? I think in the end, it actually looks pretty fresh. This is my first time sort of experimenting with underlying plate in an ocean, but I've done it before with black plate in the creek. Overall, I think it looks good. It really does improve the look of the water. I mean, back in the day, I used to just lay down blue base plates. Now I'm actually laying down plate and then laying tile on top of that plate. And I just think it adds depth and dimension to the water. So we got the long strip of beach done. Now I'm working on the plates back by the hill, and that's actually where that creek that runs right beside that hill that I built not too long ago enters the ocean, and there's also the cave entrance as well. So I have to do a little bit of different plate work under there to accommodate that creek and also the cave. Now all the underlying plate by the old fishing store and the lighthouse is done, other than the lighthouse plate. I pretty much have to create a base plate with plate on it and then transfer over the lighthouse. But I'm not going to be doing that in this video. We'll save that for the future. Excited about the look of the beach here. The azure really pops. It is super nice. Before I tile it off and finish it, we better do all the water over here by the Ferris wheel and boardwalk. First off, remove that Ferris wheel and recreate the Mills plate for it, doing a border in masonry bricks. So when you look at it, you see masonry bricks. And then also got to evenly distribute some 2x2 bricks in there so it acts as support pillars for that Ferris wheel, and then put some pillars in the ocean. So it's fully supported. I need the people on the Ferris wheel safe. And then I laid some of those plates underneath and started laying some tile, and then I realized it's way too early to start laying tile. I have no idea which direction we're heading, so I decided to stop doing that immediately. More underlying plate along the boardwalk, just going to do all azure along here. I really like the way that looks, and I just think it brightens this portion of the Lego city. Alright, so now all of the underlying plate by the beach, underneath the Ferris wheel, and by the boardwalk is done. Throughout this entire day, I've been thinking, how am I going to do this water? Is it going to be like the old water, where it's all miscellaneous pieces and trans light and dark blue with a wave there out of solid pieces? What am I going to do? I really don't know exactly which direction we're going to head. Before I continue with anything though, I've got to clean up my mess because I deconstructed the entire beach, but then I left a chaotic mess everywhere in my studio. And in order to create the water, I literally used every single blue plate that I have, and I had to source them from my unsorted pieces. Now that everything's cleaned up, I'm looking at this water again here. I'm like, boy, oh boy, what are we going to do? I know I have a lot of these dark trans blue cheese slopes from the pad wall, and also these light trans blue 1x2 tiles. I was not mentally prepared to start doing the water detail yet, so I decided to do some rock work over here by the old fishing store, because I wanted this to be like a rocky area that leads toward that hidden cave that's built into the hill. So I lay down some underlying brick, and then I start throwing down a ridiculous amount of slopes on top of those bricks to make it look sort of natural. And it really does a good job of sort of framing the old fishing store. On top of the gray rocks, I also put some light gray cheese slopes and curved slopes, sort of like all of my rock work in the Lego City. I want it to look consistent at this point, so no point in changing it up and doing it differently. And really does a good job of accommodating the old fishing store and the lighthouse and the hill, and just makes this area look a lot better than it already does. So now the rock work here is pretty much done. Might have to do a little bit more blending there by the hill, but look at that. Lined up against the old fishing store. I love it. That is absolutely fantastic. And now I'm thinking about this water again here. Man, it's going to be a lot of tiles to cover it all. I also decided to add one patch of blue over here within the azure just to add some depth to the beach region. Just a quick note on the water, I am using dark blue and also transparent cheese slopes to create the wave. I eventually want to replace those dark trans blue ones with light trans blue because they look sort of out of place, but hey, I'm using what I have in my inventory, so just bear that in mind as we do this project. First things first, I'm going to start by the boardwalk here. We're going to add a whole bunch of those cheese slopes to create the wave, and also a bunch of the light blue just to represent still water. I think the wave looks pretty good. Once again, I wish it was light trans blue, but we got to work with the parts that we have, right? But yeah, I wanted to do the wave just because I think it adds some motion to the water. Now I'm just working underneath the Ferris wheel there. Luckily it wasn't tacked down in spots, so I can just move that out of the way, adding some of those cheese slopes around the pillars. It's like water crashing up against that. And I also continue the wave under there until it meets the sand. Now this water is drastically different than the water that we did before. I figured, why would I do the exact same water? You know what? It's not as busy as the other water. The other water had like a lot more different piece types. It was very sort of rough looking. And in my opinion, it actually looked a little bit messy compared to the new water that I'm doing here today. The amount of pieces that go into the wave and the water is remarkable. But I decided to keep the same sort of thing going, that wave going all the way along. And the way I did it was just put the wave down, and then I went through and put the transparent tiles down. And the transparent tiles actually go onto the dark tan sand a little bit there, just so it looks like the water's creeping up. Now this isn't a rough ocean, it's just got this small wave. It's more of like a tropical ocean. The water is a lot brighter. So once again, that wave is just going to come outward and then back toward the shore. However, I did try to like have that wave go along the different shade of blue. Just does a really good job of sort of blending that in, because even though there's tiles on top, you can still see the difference between the standard blue and the azure. Now ultimately I would like to get some dark trans blue tiles, but once again, I'm working with the parts that I have. I don't have any of the dark blue ones right now. Maybe eventually I'll get some dark blue ones, and then I can put those in the deeper parts of the ocean. Specifically right here, when I put the wave in along the two different colors, you can see it does a pretty good job of blending in those two different shades of blue, right? Once I was done putting that wave in, I also put some cheese slopes around the base of the sailboat, and there's a wave that it's sort of crashing into, and then the water sort of breaks and spreads, so it's nice. I think it does a good job of representing moving water around the sailboat. And then I've just got to lay down a whack of tiles here, fill in the whole area, making sure to interlock all the tiles. You'll note that they're not really side by side, they're staggered. So doing that with the wave was just sort of strategic, just making sure that everything is interlocked all the way along. And actually my base plates are connected by the tiles just to make sure that they're sort of seamless. So pretty much all of the water detail is now done along the boardwalk, underneath the Ferris wheel, over by the beach. There's just so much beach frontage. It's actually so cool. I love the new beach layout. I know there's less water, but way more beach frontage. Looks really good by the sailboat here and by the old fishing store and the lighthouse. However, I did not do the tile back here by the hill, unfortunately, and all the rock work. It's not done yet. We will get it done in this video. Just there's one setback. I'm out of tile. There's no more tile to work with. I used it all. In fact, I was scavenging from everywhere. So that's an issue, but for now, let's work on this boardwalk. So I call it a boardwalk, but obviously it's not made of boards. Maybe one day I'll order enough tile to make it a reddish brown boardwalk. But I've got to redo these mills plates here because we're actually extending it out. So I do a masonry underlying brick, and then I top it with dark gray plate. And then I actually have to create a mills plate because eventually there's going to be two more buildings on this mills plate and another one beside that. So I render the half base plate as well. These buildings are actually 2 bricks tall compared to being 1 brick tall, just so it raises them up off the water. I just think it looks better if the buildings are a little bit higher up above sea level. It makes a little bit more sense. Now I was thinking of just tiling it all off in gray like the other buildings are there, but I've decided, you know what? Even though I don't have reddish brown, I don't really want to just make it all dark gray because that looks sort of boring. And I had a bunch of these dark tan 2x2 tiles, so I decided to lay them out in quadrants of 4, evenly distributed along the whole quote-unquote boardwalk. And then once those were all laid out, I thought that looked pretty good. Let's give it a dark gray border because I have a bunch of dark gray 1x2 tiles. And then there's just these nice squares in front of all of the buildings along this boardwalk, and that design actually stretches onto the platform with the Ferris wheel as well. And I just think it looks so much better. Then I create a masonry wall along the sand. There's a couple places where you can walk onto the beach and place all the buildings back. So this is the new and improved boardwalk. Man, maybe I don't have to order those reddish brown tiles because it actually looks pretty good, but those buildings need to be dealt with ASAP. Looking back over here, it's really bothering me that these plates back here aren't tiled off. So yeah, I'm looking at these tiles up here in the Ninjago district or in the canal, so maybe we need to extract some of those and reuse them in the ocean since this project is sort of at a standstill right now. I've decided that we're going to take the tiles from these 2 canal plates here that are supposed to have custom built Venetian style buildings on them, but for now we're just going to use them for the ocean because that's the project I'm working on. So everything is mills and they can all be extracted. So I actually extract the 3 back plates there and start doing some more rock work, make them all sort of blend together. Just using more of the dark gray slopes and the light gray cheese slopes and some bamboo and just sort of make those 3 plates flow together. Once that's done, it's time to once again do more water work with more transparent tiles, and I actually decide to add a little bit of a rock island. I really like that just because it sort of breaks up the water. This area of the city has enough water. Maybe we need to add some different things. I have been working on this beach project for multiple days. A lot of editing, a lot of voiceover, a lot of time lapse. Switching to live Bricksie here. Pretty fired up on the way this is looking. There's still some stuff that I need to deal with, like adding some cheese slopes and better blending these plates together. As you can see, there's some exposed studs. There's that little island there. I do want to add some trees that are going to be leaning over, sort of drooping over this creek, if you will, there. Also, once again, I've got to get this plate dealt with. That's going to be a pretty big project. Got to build a custom plate and put it on there. It might be just based with blue. I haven't quite decided yet. You can see that I should use a few more pieces here to better blend this water. But once again, the ultimate solution for that would be to get some dark trans blue tiles rather than having the transition of plate going from azure to blue. If I had it all azure and then I made the transition happen with dark blue tiles, that would be the best solution in my opinion. For example, here it doesn't look too good, right? Blending it with the wave looks all right, but here it just looks a little bit too harsh. But I do think that this new water with the azure looks very tropical. It's a beautiful pop of color from afar. Looks very good, and I think it looks better than the existing water. This water was in the city forever. It just looks a little bit messy. I'm not a huge fan that these are not transparent elements. The solid colors of the wave look sort of strange. However, that big wave was pretty neat because it does offer sort of playability, if you will, because you can position surfers on the wave. But I wanted to try something different, and I think this is substantially different than the existing water. We could use some upgrades once again with those different colors of cheese slopes, maybe some dark blue 1x2 tiles. There are some in here, but not nearly enough to do what I want to do. And I love the way that this sailboat is sort of submerged in the water. However, I did notice that I made a mistake right here. The water's coming onto regular tan plate. Oh no, I've got to switch that to dark tan. I'm really excited to announce a new project. The comment section has been begging me to do this project for quite some time. So we've got our mini modular buildings. I'm going to be making the toy store and the noodle shop on their own 32x32 plates, so they'll share a plate there. And then we have this surf shop right here, which I think is like an apartment and just a surf shop. I have another one of these. I am going to be doubling it up, so I'm going to be using 2 sets and making it a full 16x32 building, just like this here, which we custom made. And I'm going to turn this into a surf skate shop. So you can buy surfboards and also skateboards from this shop right here. And guess what's going to go right behind it on this open green base plate? I was talking about making it a parking lot, but parking lots are boring. Park on the street. I'm going to convert that base plate into a custom made skate park. So it's going to be a 32x32 skate park, and it's going to be right behind the surf skate shop. So cool. Also, we've got a bunch of open space over here. Haven't quite decided what we're going to do with this. There are some of the Bricklink designer program sets that are going to be shipping relatively soon, like the Mountain View Observatory, which is going to go on top of this hill. And there's also like the, what is it, the diner or something like that. That might look cool there. However, I am thinking a farmer's market / fish market. If we position it right by the farm and also the old fishing store. So some sort of farmer / fish market right over here by the skate park and the skate surf shop. So while editing this video, I've noticed that the camera is going a little bit dull here and there. I think it's because I changed the pot light up there to the 5000K, and the camera's not liking that 5000K. So I'm going to be switching it back. I did talk about lighting in a previous video, and I think I'm going to stick with the current setting, which is actually daylight, because it seems as though the camera doesn't like that single pot light, which is on the 5000K bright white. So the beach is looking pretty awesome. I am fired up on this. It took me so long to create. Boy, oh boy, that water looks crystal clear and that sand looks absolutely incredible. It's missing a few things though. That is details and storytelling. So this is all the stuff that used to be on the beach. I've got it sorted here. Lots of palm trees. Those are going to look great when they're placed. The outhouse, the shower, the volleyball net, some food vendors, the lifeguards, some sand castles, some cabanas, the beach bar, and all sorts of minifigures and boats and different things that minifigures can interact with. I've got to go through this stuff, decide what's staying and what's going, and then place it on the beach. For sure, the cabanas are going. They're an older mock of mine, which isn't bad. They look decent, I guess. But I think they're in need of an upgrade, and these are going to be something that are leaving the beach for sure. It's a new beach, so I think it deserves some new details as well. The original old fishing store design actually had a guardrail going along here, and I chose to extend mine out so it had a dock going into the water. I was thinking about having this dock connect to the lighthouse like that there. I'm not sure if I'm a fan of that idea. I just think it sort of takes away from the look of this area. So I have to decide, am I going to use this to connect to the lighthouse from the old fishing store? Am I going to put the old fishing store back in its original state? Or am I going to recreate this maybe so it's a bit narrower and looks a little bit better than that? Geez, I almost forgot to add the minifigures to the sailboat. So I added those, added some dolphins in front of the sailboat there. Rebuilt 9 of the palm trees, placed those on the beach here, so those look good. Add some height, some different colors and everything. Also, I fixed up the sand work and did a little bit of the blending over there as well. Now I'm thinking about details, like, do I want to add those right now? I almost don't, because it might take away from the pristine look that it is right now. I just want to look at it because it looks great. I do have a bunch of 1x3 can plates that I bought off the pad wall. Probably going to add some texture to the sand, place it all over, because beaches aren't flat. They have a little bit of texture, right? So I'll probably add that stuff. And when I add the details, I really want to, go all in and do different stuff. Get rid of those cabanas, maybe rebuild new cabanas. Probably going to get rid of that beach bar too. I think it takes away from the look, honestly. And then maybe rebuild some of the lifeguard stuff, just because some of those things are honestly not that attractive in my opinion. And when it looks pristine like this, you got to be careful what kind of details you add to the beach, because it has to sort of match that pristine look in my opinion. I just want it to look really good. This whole corner of the city, I've just been working on it slowly but surely, and it's just really coming along and really looks fantastic. I hope you enjoyed my beach update here today. I am going to leave the minifig details for later, because like I said, got to think about it, and I just really want it to look pristine and polished, and I sort of want to enjoy the look of it as it is right now for a day or two. Thank you so much for coming on by. I hope you enjoyed this beach update. Remember to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for some more great stuff, and farewell.